Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. We've got Mick Strawn on the show.
Oh,
And we were
Jesus.
just talking about porn and porn music and his new porn stash.
I don't know if I'd ever want to.
Now, wait a minute.
In Minneapolis.
In defense of my porn stash,
It's not really a porn stash.
Well, you notice that the beard is gone.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't.
The beard got wiped out by a virus. No, by a what's the other one?
A rat?
Infection?
Bacteria.
Yeah.
No, it's fungus. A fungus took over my face. I didn't know this, that you can have a beard, and when they get really thick, if you have a really thick beard,
Yeah.
occasionally they're susceptible to funguses, and the fungus is horrendous. So I kept feeling my beard, going, wow, it's starting to feel really weird and puffy underneath my beard. And I shaved my beard off, and my face was just one big welt from one end to the other. I had to go to the doctor, go, Doctor said, yeah, here.
Thank God puberty and bad DNA has prevented me from growing any hair.
Oh,
yeah, now I'll just share that with my wife, because she says I'm not allowed to do it. So now I'll be like, I guess you're right.
Well, my beard gets really, really dense,
Yeah.
and it wasn't good. Let's put it that way.
Are you going to grow it back?
Oh, I've already started to grow it back. The problem is it's white. So you can hardly even tell that it's growing back until all of a sudden it's, like an inch long. And then you go, hey, look, all of a sudden Mick got a beard.
Yeah, I'm starting.
Oh, there's a penis joke there.
Yeah.
There's actually 7 penis jokes that were hidden in that explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going gray too. I know it sucks. But you were talking about, you've got a new movie, and you won't be at Scarefest this year because you're going to be editing it.
We'll be just finishing. We'll just be finishing up principal photography, and I think that we're gonna be doing some of the special effects insert shots and stuff. And I'm directing with a friend of mine, Jeremy Brown. We actually co-directed The Vengeance.
Yeah. And
so we got together, and we have another film that we put together that is not a fan film.
Yeah.
It's basically it's kind of a twist on the show Alone. Only with a Wendigo.
Okay.
So basically it's Alone, and we're following one of the contestants on an alone type game called Solitude. And she happens to run afoul of the local Wendigo.
Oh.
And hilarity ensues.
Well, that's exciting. So did you guys write it together, you say?
Yeah. I mean, and by right, I said, yeah, no, let's find somebody to write this.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, you said it because you and I have talked about a couple of things before, and I always imagine no, you just do this, and this. No, go type that shit.
Exactly.
Go
Yeah,
type that shit.
Yeah. No, hey, look, I'm only writing one book in my life. That's it. I'm not doing that again. But I will at any point go, hey, no, we should do this. Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to do another book.
Yeah, I thought a book was coming.
I'm working on it. The problem in the next book that I want to do, everybody wants me to do a book about Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah.
But I've come to this conclusion. The difference between Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was very different, and it was very positive. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was just a fucking mess from the beginning to the end. It was just a nightmare. Chuck Russell was the worst human being ever. In fact, I just worked with Roy Wagner, who was the DP on it, and we sat around and telling Chuck Russell is a dick stories.
I've got a pitch for you. Mick. Now, hear me out on this. I think you need to do the behind the scenes book, but hear me out. You do a 1-page start where you say it was a terrible experience, blah blah, and then you get an illustrator to do like drawings of behind the scenes catastrophes, whatever went wrong,
What?
but make it a coloring book. You'll write the first behind the scenes coloring
book. That is hilarious.
With disaster. So, like,
that,
I don't care if it was just there was no coffee. So you've got a thing of angry people standing in line waiting for coffee.
And the thing is I would get really good at pictures of ambulances and shit like that.
Yeah, right? That's what I mean. Just whatever went wrong, you just have somebody draw it. You do the introduction. You do the introduction. Put that on Amazon for $14.99, and people will buy it because it's the first behind the scenes coloring book where you will actually have illustrations of everything that went wrong behind the scenes.
I have to tell you something funny. I was at a con, the Corvette con, right?
In Bowling Green.
In Bowling Green.
Yep.
And I met a guy by the name of Preston Poling. And Preston Poling makes miniatures of sets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I kind of walked past this thing and I was like, it was interesting because they were taken more from his view of looking at the films than they were of what the sets were really about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to say, you ought to do what the stage of Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was like because of how complicated all the sets were.
Mm-hmm.
And almost immediately I got sucked into a film and it was like we couldn't get back together for probably 4 months, right?
Yeah.
And finally I got a hold of him and I drove back out to the mountains above Bowling Green where he has a huge shop that he builds these miniatures in. And we spent the day and I was showing him how each set worked because all the sets that were in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 also doubled as complete special effects, right? So yeah, he went nuts about that. So he's got a whole bunch of like he's doing the tunnel with them trying to spilling out into the church.
Yeah.
He's doing the cockroach, the whole entire cockroach sequence, laying it out like we had it all laid out, so the great thing about it is that if you start in one side and you're Freddy looking in a box, and if you go all the way to the other end of it, which is through the attic and into the oversized cockroach, then there's the rear screen projection with the projector that is projecting the very first thing that you saw on, which is Freddy's eye looking, inside of the oversized cockroach thing.
Yeah.
So we kind of laid it out the way that they were laid out, which should be a really interesting model. I should probably only take him the next 2 or 3 years of his life.
Well, I don't mean to change the subject, but I have a quick question because honestly, you and I, or I don't think the 4 of us have ever talked a lot about Nightmare 3. And you do talk a lot more about 4, and we've talked more about it just dealing with renting Harlan. And you haven't actually told me a lot of good Chuck Russell stories. And the reason why I want to ask a little bit about this is because, and I know you get asked, and we try never to ask you nightmare questions because I know everybody else does that. And we brought you, and you're on here to talk about something completely different. But he's drinking. While I've got you, a lot of people love Nightmare 3.
I know.
That's their favorite of the sequels. That's the most popular, probably, sequel. I mean, I know 4 was the most successful, but a lot of people love 3. Some people say it's better.
Oh, no, more. By the way, I mean, more people love 3 than 4 than any other one of the nightmares, right?
Uh-huh.
And if I were a wise man, and Lord knows nobody has ever accused me of that, if I were a wise man, I would lean towards telling stories and stuff about that. The only thing is it just wasn't an enjoyable experience.
What is
It
it?
was just a shitty experience, right?
Right, and I'm not trying to dig up bones. Where my question's going with this is because the movie is good. I always think that there's some uneven parts in it, actually, but the movie is pretty good for a sequel. It's got a pretty good story. What made it work if it was such a clusterfuck behind the scenes?
Oh, well, the funny thing is,
Other than they had an Academy Award nominee writer named Frank Darabont on it at one.
Yeah, but the thing is Nicky Marvin and Rachel Talalay are the two that actually got the film made.
Right.
Here's the thing. The thing is that good movies. How good a movie is doesn't have a lot to do with the experience behind it. And I have to say there are people and statistically, if I really had to like sit down and statistically look at it, I would say that and I had a producer say this to me once. He says, have you ever noticed how the worse experience you have on the film, the better the film is in the end?
Have we heard that more than once?
I don't want to say that. Because this is my living. This is what I do all the time. And I don't want to have to say that. But I cannot deny the truth of the matter, that the more of a down low, dirty shit fight, political, as well as just asinine group of people you put together, the worst of the worst, it usually makes a better film. I don't want to say that because this is my living. This is what I do.
You're not the first person. That is an old cliche, and it's been spoken about on tons of behind the scenes stuff throughout 100 years of filmmaking. The worst. Oh, we had a joyous time. No one went to the theater to see it, but we had a really good time.
Wait. You know for a fact that I don't ever look at any behind the scenes anything, right?
I get it.
So I'm just telling you, I am just telling you from the point of view of my experience and what I have heard from actual producers and people on the film, that yes, that's the fucking way that it is.
Why is it? Is it because so many arguments and ideas that the best one sometimes wins out accidentally just because it's such a dirty, rotten mess?
Well, you know what? I mean, to a certain extent, I don't want to define it because it'll become what it is. But, fighting passion makes more passion.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering, because you worked on a movie that people are beloved, and you would kill the director of Blade.
Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah. I mean, look, Blade. How about Mortal Kombat? Until I brought the battle in Mortal Kombat, which was me against all of them, to say, look, if you want to make this a good film, you have to sit down and you have to make a 2-month reshoot.
Yeah.
And the political battles involved in doing that, and yet that is the part of the film that everybody loves, right?
My son's favorite part, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And the thing is I had to fight tooth and nail for that. It wasn't even my project. I didn't even really care that much. But I'm just saying, if you want to get from X to Y, and this, well, then I'm going to tell you why.
Well, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that though, because I read an interview today about the entire politics and all that stuff with Robert Downey Jr. And it's getting great clickbait titles of Robert Downey Jr. slams Marvel Comics, but it's not what he actually said. What he said was, in his opinion, the two most important movies he's done in the last 15 years was The Shaggy Dog and Doolittle. And he says the Shaggy Dog because that's when Disney finally said, "Okay, we'll insure you again."
Right. Well,
he got insurance back.
Right.
And then Doolittle, he said, and that's when I learned that, my ego's not going to save me.
Right. Right.
And he said, credit to, I guess, Susan Downey, his wife, was one of the producers. And he said, what you saw that worked at all, she took reels and reels of film and cobbled together a story that made some sense.
I got to tell you something. It is a surprise that that Robert Downey Jr.'s old man didn't snort up so much coke that there was any left for him.
Yeah,
I've heard that. Yeah.
I mean, because honestly, my sister brought me onto a couple of Downey's early film. Into New York, and where his old man was a director.
Yeah.
And I swear I was looking around going, wow, really? You guys just like sit around and just fucking blast each other like all the time? Sign me up.
Yeah. If you get a chance to watch the documentary he made about his dad, it's called Senior. I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that even if that was warts and all, it was nothing like the stuff that I heard about. So
absolutely. Chad, sorry, you had a question.
No, I just want to backtrack to Mortal Kombat. I gotta disagree with Mick. That's not the most memorable scene, especially for 15-year-old me who is going through puberty. It's technically Bridget Wilson doing the handstand and snapping Kano's neck, and ooh, sexy.
That's just how Chad wants to go out.
Oh, yeah. there.
When he gets beard fungus.
1995, nothing was hotter than Bridget Wilson.
Well, there you go.
I think you're watching. You're watching it for a different reason than my son.
I was going to say.
Then she had to go marry a tennis player.
Death wish.
Anyway, what we had you on the show was
to talk about Bridget Wilson.
Was that we had Todd Farmer on a few weeks ago, and I said in the first 5 minutes, Mick is going to see this and go, oh, or hear this and go, holy shit, Todd Farmer will not outdo me. I will be back on Bonehead, which we knew and we were excited about. I knew that would be the motivation.
First thing is, Todd, I love you, but screw
you. Don't assume he's listening.
Yeah, I don't think that I would. The thing is for one thing, he's a member of a guild.
Yep.
And
this is what Mick called me up to yell at me about.
I said, hey, that's a guild. And a guild, here's the thing. In a guild, they're all talking to each other.
Uh-huh.
Right? So a guild has more of a positive feel to it. I mean, they're working together to sell a product to a producer, right? Yeah. And most of the rules that are ascribed to a guild are built by the guild itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by the members itself. The thing is a union is a group of representatives that sit between you and who you're working for, right? And in the case of IATSE, who you're working, the thing is that both sides of IATSE were represented by criminal groups, and it has never changed. IATSE is still a criminal enterprise, and the other people are producers. So, but the thing is IATSE will come in. IATSE is like it wants to dress up as a guild, but the only thing that it has going for it is sort of a keep everybody out sort of feeling to it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, hold on. Let's pause you real quick so that our audience understands what IATSE is. Do you remember what exactly it stands behind? What it stands for?
IATSE is the International Allied Theatrical Stage
Employees. Yeah,
employees. Right.
I thought IOTC was just a fun dice game.
And moving, and by the way, I wanted to make sure you had it because I had to look it up and make sure too. And it's Moving Picture Technicians, Artists, and Allied Crafts of the United States, its territories, and Canada, and was founded in 1893. Sorry,
say territories again, Joe.
Now,
territories.
Real quick,
before you said territories.
I'm sorry.
This is Barbara Walters, and this is 2020.
It is Barbara Walters.
Actually, it has a prehistory too, because it started originally as the Theatrical Protective Union. Not to say that it's any more, that it sounds a little bit more like what Mick was talking about, that it might have had some criminal connection, protection.
And but we didn't mean to stop you on that. We just wanted to make sure that the audience knew what that was, because I had to Google it to know exactly what it stood for.
It was taken over by the mob in the 30s. Bugsy Siegel put it, actually got the original, not the original IOTC, because basically IOTC goes back to theater days, but Bugsy Siegel took it over and made it more of a criminal enterprise. And the thing is it has blatantly stayed that way since then, right?
Right.
Basically, it is an entity that kind of takes money from both sides. It says a lot. It does nothing. It has pretty good insurance set up for its people, but it charges a fortune for that. And it's $6,000 to get in. It's $600 a year in dues. Plus, you have to have a certain amount of numbers in for every year. And to tell you and the thing is as soon as you go on Cobra, you're going to pay like $1,100 a month. And Cobra is because you didn't get your $100 in a year. So that by itself right there, it's elitist. I was invited into it many times, but I have to tell you the truth. My problem was that the people that I worked for never did union shows. So or if they did a union show, they would do a union show. That crew would then go on and do some other union thing. But I was the captain of all that. I was the production designer, and they offered me to come in as an assistant draftsperson, which, to start at the beginning of the union chain. And I'm like, well, yeah, but guys, I hadn't even heard of you until I'd been in business for 10 years. So,
well, I was about to say, and this is fascinating to me because I love organized crime. I've never been invited to any. I don't know what that says about me, but
it means that you have no money or power,
or talent, or thing that would make them want you. But having tried to prep for this conversation, I was looking up IOTC, and you're not. I mean, kidding. Siegel aside, in 1934, there was an election where only one person was allowed to run. And
I'm not kidding about this. This is a criminal enterprise. And the thing is it has never changed its way of dealing with things. It is still a criminal enterprise.
Yeah, George Brown was elected in 1934 after he was the only one that ran. And immediately, Willie Bob, a known Chicago gangster, was named his personal representative.
Exactly.
That needs to be a movie in and of itself. How fascinating is that? That is amazing.
If you go back and you listen to the Bugsy Siegel story, right? It has a lot of those, a lot of the edges of the Union story are in there. Although the thing is they're, how can I say, they're cleaned up and they're polished up a little bit.
Polished.
The thing is, the thing is it's a mean town, and you can buy. I have so many. There's so many shows that the unions would come in and literally say, well, you can't release that unless you have our seal on it. We won't let you get into the theaters. And so without making a deal with the people at all that were involved in that film, a non-union film, they would go in and and charged the film $500,000 to get the IATSE seal.
Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to the union. That doesn't go to any union member, you know? I mean, there are so many cases of that. There are so many cases of today that IATSE coming in and buying a show. And the show that I was just on, Pig Hill, right?
Yeah.
It got in a couple of moles in the electrical department, and they did a classic union play. They come in and they grab the grip and electric are the most susceptible because there are smaller brains involved. And so they take the grip and electric.
Are you saying people who put grip tape down don't need to have a huge cranium?
Actually, people who put the grip tape down for the most part of the camera people, and they have more because but the thing is the grip is the guy that hands them the tape. So
right.
So anyway, the thing is those people are then are then susceptible to this because they want to be in the union. So the union came in, and the thing is let me tell you where this film got its funding is a group of people, some of business people in the town of Meadville got together $500,000, and they wanted to make a film, right? Mm-hmm. They wanted to, because there was a local author that had written a book called Pig.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was going to like be a tourist point for the town.
Yeah.
They got all these local people together. They got $500,000 to put together a film. So they start to do it. So this is $500,000 that are put together by local people, and so the union worms its way in through the gaffer, and the gaffer starts to work on the crew, and to work on the film, and there's an insidious thing that they do is they come in and and believe me, I've seen this many times. They come in and they try and get you to, they try and say, well, we need more equipment. And then when you get them more equipment, and the problem with that is that, especially these days, nobody knows what the equipment is, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, unless you're a nerd or a nerd geek or a camera nerd geek, you're not a camera nerd.
No. I'm just a normal geek nerd.
The three boneheads are not nerdy in anything helpful.
So they order more equipment, and then they say, well, we're going to need more people for all the equipment that we've got. and it turns out that when they start out the film, they're starting out 2 grips and 2 electricians. By the time they get 2 weeks in, they're running 5 grips and 5 electricians to operate the 3 moon boxes that they need for the location. By the way, I don't know what planet they thought that they were on, but you usually can only use 1 moon box, and you know why?
Why?
Because we only have 1 fucking moon. I mean, I'm not kidding. When I said I literally looked through the invoices like 2 days before they struck, and I said, you realize that you guys have you production have given those bozos 3 moon boxes out there, right? And they're like, well, yeah. Why is that a problem? I go, how many moons do you see up in the sky right now?
Well, there was that one guy that said 3, but he had issues.
Yeah, issues. Well, anyway, the thing is the reason that they get all this equipment and that they get all these people is that they then get a certain percentage for turning everybody into the union, because then you've done so many hours on a show. You've already done enough hours on a show, and your name is in the roll when they turn the show.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is they don't have a distributor. They don't have anything. I mean, they literally only have 500,000, and they're trying to make the film for that, right?
Right.
So it's not like these people had deep pockets. And so, in all honesty, there was Yeah, and it happened at 2 weeks, the way that always does, because what you want to do is you want to get yourself so far into the show that they don't want to lose you, so that they'll pay a quarter to $500,000 to have you stay on for the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And they got up there and they made, wow, working conditions are so bad and blah, 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 blah. We're going to have to strike, you know? And then I went, everybody was being really civil. And then I decided that I didn't want to be civil. So I went after the DP and I told him that he was a fucking pussy out in the middle of everybody out there. And evidently, and so then they sent me a card, you know, that maybe I wanted to get in the union, and I sent it back saying, "Dear Jeff, such and such, please go fuck yourself. Love, Mick Strawn." And evidently that is posted in several places in bulletin boards and you know, chat, inter-union chat in the New York and the Atlanta area. So there, I've got that going for me.
Well, but you brought up something really, so the difference between a guild and a union in actuality, because
Right.
I was.
Did you look that up too?
No, I didn't. But
well, you should have. Jesus Christ!
Somebody didn't do.
I technically.
You want me to look it up for you?
I was technically part of a union myself briefly. Not any of the cool unions.
Right.
I worked at a grocery store, and it was a unionized shop, and it was always so funny to me because people had very sincere opinions, and what you're talking about puts it in perspective. But people would always say, well, if we weren't union, or we need to be union, because, and for me, all it meant was anytime they asked me to do anything that wasn't in my job description that I was hired to do, I got a quarter an hour bonus. So like I was originally hired to be a cashier, and then they were like, oh, we need somebody to stock food. And I was like, I'll do it. And literally it was like I had magic. All of a sudden, within like a day, a union rep showed up going, you're getting a quarter extra an hour for doing that, right? And I said, I don't know. We'll make sure you do. Okay. I don't know, man. I'm here to do a job. I'm trying to pay for college.
Which is fine, but trust me, nobody from the IATSE is going to show up on set and go, well, yeah, miss, did you get your 75 cents?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. And by the way, my entire thing, what I was thinking is, I was like, that's cool on that level that I got a quarter, an extra an hour.
Here's the thing. I'm a liberal through and through. I love unions. I love the concept of unions. I don't think that would have gotten as far as we have today without them. I'm talking about specifically IATSE as a criminal enterprise.
Well, no, but I also have that voice in the back of my head as well that guy didn't show up to get me a quarter for nothing, right? Like
yeah, absolutely.
There was somebody, he was getting paid to, now admittedly to help me, but
right, yeah, but let me tell you something. It's not like the amount of money IATSE gets as being the middleman. See, the thing is IATSE is a middleman, makes bank. I mean, big bank. And there are so many shows that their only representation on the show is to come in and get $500,000 so that we don't destroy you, right? Yep. Which I think is criminal. I mean, I think that a group of people up in Meadville, Pennsylvania should be able to go out and hire a bunch of people and make a motion picture without the union having to come up and get involved. By the way, I might also add this, is when they decided that they were going to strike, they all got fired. And the thing is immediately the union sent out these warnings that we're going to come and shut you down. But here's the thing, the nearest union shop was in Pittsburgh, right? And Pittsburgh was an hour and a half away. I figured that, I know how lazy union people are in general, that nobody was going to drive an hour and a half out of their way to come over and make a difference, especially considering that I was standing there with all kinds of mace canisters to take care of them. But The thing is they never showed up because it's an hour and a half out of their way.
Well, but
go ahead.
30
Jeff.
minutes, 30 minutes in, they take a break.
Yeah,
I kind of want to get a little context around this. So, what were you doing on this movie? Were you
I was the production designer.
You're the production designer, and how did you meet these folks? Was it through other?
Oddly enough, it was through it was through 4 or 5 different channels at once.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
But R.A. Haloff, who's I've known,
30 years.
Yeah, 30, 40 years. Yeah. And he said, this is the man that you want. And they hired me early to come in and not only help put the sets together, but to kind of help with some of the writing and some of the some of the other problems with the script.
Yeah. So that's cool. And then you get to show up and get money, and then you somehow become embroiled in a union dispute. Only fucking you.
Well, no,
This
but I mean,
happened.
it's
On a $500,000 picture in Puxatawny, Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania. I said the guy from Kentucky.
To get into the biggest fight that's gone on the East Coast in the long. Yeah, that's quite true. That's that.
I just wanted to put context around this, gentlemen. I apologize.
That's a pretty common piece of context.
Before I go on, have you ever seen, and I can't remember now, and I should have looked this up beforehand, but it's because you work so much with New Line, but Dimension as well from Miramax. This happened, I think, on From Dusk Till Dawn. Almost got shut down.
It did. Same thing.
Was it IATSE that did it to them as well? I know that
IATSE broke them. The funny thing is the DP literally after I called him a pussy for bowing to union demands, as he was walking away, he turned to me and he goes, Mick, it's not 1989 anymore. But the funny thing about it is when he said that was all of a sudden it kind of rung a bell in my head, and I looked it up. The very first show that that I crossed the union line was in 1989. So I have to say he's wrong.
All right. Well, which show was it?
1989.
Which show was it in 89? Do you remember?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
For New Line.
For New Line, of all things. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jeff Burr.
Right.
Yep.
I think you bring up an interesting point, though, because, I mean, a $500,000 budget to me seems large, but obviously we know compared to, I don't know, a Dial of Destiny budget is nothing.
It's nothing.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
And so pressure on a production like that, it does seem like it would stifle independent cinema. Now, don't get me wrong. The few movies that I did where Joe was directing, had I known I could have appealed to a union, I would have.
But we were appealed to God. It wasn't going to help you.
I would say, I think we got paid in Little Caesars pizzas and boxed wine. So, it was a good time.
Well, you see, that's the interesting thing. It is so where do you draw the line? And here's the thing. I could understand. I think even a lot of the people in the union couldn't figure out why they were doing this, right? I think that there were a lot of people that did not do their homework because they would have known that. The thing is if you're doing a $500,000 film like that, and it had pretty good stars and it had, it had people in it, right? You would figure that it would be good enough that it would have a distribution, but it didn't. And I mean, I don't necessarily know why that is. I don't know why they didn't have fingers out first for distribution.
Because that's another one of those old Hollywood tales, as old as time, is that and you know who taught me this? It was Bruce Campbell and Rob Tappert and Sam Raimi talking about the first Evil Dead. It's like, you gotta have to do it, but selling the damn picture is the hard part.
And that's where most
young filmmakers and independent filmmakers break down. It's not actually getting it shot and written and all. You think that's insurmountable. Getting the damn thing out there is
Right.
actually what kills you.
The thing is that they're coming up on an interesting time. There are enough strikes and so forth going on that they're probably not going to have any trouble selling them. They
Which
have
means
enough
we
stars.
need to get to writing, guys. Now's the time.
Well, the thing is I'm going the other way. The film that I'm making in August, we're doing for so little that we can sell it. There's kind of a low baseline for Netflix that's in and around $60,000. I mean, they'll pay $60,000 for virtually anything, and we're working at about $25,000, right? So that's the other end of that. But we did have enough. I mean, I would have to look up the film to give you an idea of the people that are in it, but it is actually, the acting is amazing. You know, it is a level above. It is at a level. Pig Hill is at the level of the early New Line Cinema films.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it's not the level of the $200,000 films that are, or the $150,000 films that are coming out now. You know, so I think that they won't have a problem getting a distributor and getting it lined up. The director did the Willy's
Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah, Willy's Wonderland.
Nick Cage.
Yeah, with Nick Cage. And he was one of the producers on that. So him being a director on this is he carries that and the cast, and a good cast with it. So I think that I think that they've spent their money in the right places, and I think they're going to come out with a sellable product.
Yeah, good. Even though you had to tell some people to go fuck themselves and cause Puxatawny
Yeah, but you know what? I'm always telling
to lose his union card.
I was going to say, I think that's actually what you send out instead of Christmas cards or just GFY cards.
Go fuck yourself.
So while I've got
very nice photo of your family with them, though. Very nice, very nice. Well done.
Very nice. Hey, you like it with the blood and everything? Yeah.
While I've got you here, though, I do want to ask you your opinion about some of the Writer Guild strike, and the Director Guild, of course, didn't strike and struck a deal, and how long this is going to go on.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about it is think of how weak the people in IATSE really are. I mean, they finally won a 12-hour day.
Yeah, which most of us have
Right?
had.
Come on.
A 12-hour day and a 58.
I swear to God, that's all I could think to myself was, wow, we finally got a 12-hour day.
A 12-hour day and a 58-week work year.
58-hour work week. I know.
But it is kind of fucking ridiculous when you think about it.
Think of how difficult this is, though. And I'll tell you when it all went to shit was back in the 80s, because back in the 80s was the first time that you got that meteoric rise in the cost of the better actors, right?
Or superstars, the stars.
Yeah, you get the stars going, you know, just crazy money. And here's what happens. What happens is the crews. So it breaks down to like I don't know. Maybe you get an actor and it can break down to 500,000 a day, right? So if you sit down and you lay that out and go, well, we can chop you a day here off of the end. We're going to chop you back a day. We're going to give you $500,000 less, and we'll pay the overtime on the crew. We'll pay the $150,000 overtime for the crew, and it becomes a math problem, right? It has nothing to do with people.
It's economics.
It's economics. So then you work the crew 18, 19, 20 hours, and you do it again and again. We didn't even used to have hold on, I gotta pull my.
That's okay. When he comes back, we're going to ask him about, is this where the cocaine in the 4-footed back of the trailer came into play?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you've got to stay going. I'm just looking
this
at
is
the.
where we began. This is where we in one summer in 1986 or 87, something like that, we lost 3 people in a month driving home off of cruise in 3 vastly different film productions, right? Because you had people just doing these crazy hours. And the thing is it has happened ever since, you know, ever since the union does these huge fights and they come down to like 15 hours is the longest day will run you, right? No, and that's that kind of stuff. And that's what that's what your days become. It's exhausting. It really is. I mean, honestly, as a production designer, I don't work that hard. I make it look like I work that hard. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a production designer now.
That's your ultimate special effect.
That's right. There you go. There you go. Hey, you know, smoke and mirrors includes me in my hotel.
But that you're right. But seriously, the back of the 4-foot you were the one who told us the 4-foot back of the trailer in the cocaine room, right?
Right, exactly. And you know, that is the oldest thing in Hollywood. I mean, that was how you made it through those days, you know.
Well, I was watching that it reminded me of your story because I was watching the Warner Brothers on Max or whatever they call it now. They did that 100 years.
Right.
And one of the things that they briefly mentioned in the first episode is the Berkeley, the dance numbers.
Right, Busby Berkeley.
Yeah, and they do a 3-second throwaway line where the expectation was that if you were a dancer, you slept on the stage.
Right.
Because you were expected to be there because you were the prop.
Right. Exactly. Because you were a prop, right?
And I was watching, and they had a couple quick scenes of like literally just the dancers laying out there, like the photos of it's like, oh, here's a wooden stool, and by the way, there's a dancer sleeping behind it. And I was like, yeah, and so it reminded me of some of your stories of they somehow started to protect the actors.
Right. Yeah, but they didn't protect anybody else.
Yeah.
And into the middle of that, you have the most corrupt union that has ever existed. It's and if the union is fighting for your rights, well, they're not fighting very fucking hard if they finally got 12-hour days in 2022.
I thought it sounded ridiculous too, but when you say it, it sounds even worse. Because there's not there are 3 middle-aged boneheads. Let me tell you right now, we're doing 12-hour days.
Yeah, no.
Well, now, if I pull a 12-hour day, I know the next day I'm not doing. You'll get.
You're not doing another 12.
No, I'm not doing 2 12s in a row.
I've been through that, and I never want to go back again.
The thing is there's this thing that happens when you work 14-hour days is you finally wind because in the 80s because of all those people that we lost on the summer shows, right?
Yeah.
They decided that to put in something called a turnaround, and a turnaround means that and the turnaround started at 8 and they moved up to 10, and then they moved up to 12. But here's the problem with a turnaround, and a turnaround is that if we send you out, you have to have 10 hours before you come back, right? Here's the problem with that. Problem with that is that it eats into your Sunday.
Yeah.
Because the math doesn't work out right,
Right.
So if you worked between 14 and 16 hours and you did a 10-hour turnaround, eventually you wound up going home at 11 o'clock in the morning Sunday from your 5th day of work or your 6th day of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what happens is you get home in time to fire up the barbecue, go to bed, and get back on the set at 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's like. That's what it's like to film. And from my point of view, being a production designer on really complicated shows, it's even worse for me because I'm by my own call. You know what? I mean, I just have to make it so that we actually have something there to shoot. It gets just really complicated. I remember going to New Zealand, which was really a strange experience because New Zealand would pull a plug on you at 10 hours. That's it. You had to go home. And I remember I had this director, this American director, standing there on the set, and his name was Bill. I can't think of his last name, but he's standing on set, and I'm standing with him, and he's going. I'm going, yeah, you know what? You're at 9.5 hours. They're going to shut you down. And he goes, oh yeah. Oh, I know. You, look, 10 hours. You guys said it was 10 hours, right? I said, yeah, it's 10 hours, but it's really 10 hours. And he goes, at 10 hours, everybody just dropped their equipment and just got in their cars and left. And he was like, hey, wait, where are they going? I said, well, it's 10 hours. What part of 10 hours did you not understand? He goes, well, I know 10 hours, but 10 hours is 10 hours. I go, yeah, it's 10 hours.
But, you talked about losing people, but and obviously injuries and everything like that goes with that. And the only thing that I can come close to comparison to a 16-hour day is for 2 summers, I worked 2 full-time jobs. And the first summer I did it, I ended up in the hospital. I actually passed out in the waiting room of the emergency room. That was a good time. And I woke up and the doctor literally was looking at me and he goes, oh, good, you're awake. I had an IV in my arm. And he goes, and, he said, okay, well, I was still an undergrad at the time. He goes, you had a university ID on you, so we know you're a student. Do you know what sodium is? Yes. Do you know what potassium is? Yes. He goes, do you know you don't have enough of either?
You don't have either one of those?
Yeah, because I was my second job, I had to go with something that would have flexible schedule. I was pushing shopping carts in the sun all day.
Oh, well, yeah.
And so it was, and then I would work night security because that's what you do. And
the grips used to call it Peruvian marching powder. I remember that I used to have a pager and one time a pager went off and every time my pager went off, it went off 911 was what it said, right? And then the next thing that came up was the number, but it was always 911. And the key grip leans over and he looks down at my pager and he goes, 911, you know what that means, right? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, great price on an 8-ball. As an 8-ball for those of you who don't understand.
Yeah, right.
Reference to that joke.
But no, well, and sadly, or maybe fortunately, I did not have access to any of Peruvian goods, but probably fortunately. But
really quick, so how does the production buy illegal cocaine?
Oh,
and get away with it?
No production has ever bought illegal cocaine.
Well, yeah, it's actually, isn't the Blues Brothers the famous one that it made it onto the actual?
They gave it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Caddyshack.
The thing is you would have a person who would deliver a certain amount of money, usually run through it would be run through
which
props, miscellaneous, because the grips would have place and our department would build the place. The grips would supply the place and access to it, and props would supply the coke.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's the thing is movies. Everything has got its place.
By the way, people talk about old Hollywood, and I love the fact that now the 80s have become their own version of old Hollywood. Like,
don't even start with me.
No, I'm not saying, but it's
true. I mean, if you're in 1984 thinking about the films in the 40s, and now you're in 2023, it's not two; it's the same amount.
But no, but I mean,
tell me about it. I know
we were alive in the 80s as well, Mick. We just weren't doing. We weren't allowed as much Peruvian marching power.
Well, but what I was going to say
Speak for yourself.
It's really interesting to me
that's the reason
to watch my children, who are obviously
Coke?
younger than I am. No, not. You know how much I make. They ain't
James
doing
Robert
nothing.
Downey Senior Thomas.
But they like I literally my eldest said, "Hey Dad, I saw this thing and it all it said was the 80s are back and it had a bunch of stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, that's because y'all are out of ideas. You kids today." And I realized it's the same thing my father would always say, why is Indiana Jones a big thing? It's because they're redoing the serials I watched as a kid. And I was like, okay, it's generational. It's just, oh no, we did that. Now it's, oh, okay, well, we did that.
The thing is Indiana Jones was basically taken off of the serials that were. Hold on. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
Are you here?
You hear?
I-
Can you hear me?
Hold on. Let me see if I.
This is us hanging out while Mick, while he's gone. What
Hey.
other cocaine questions can we ask? Why does cocaine come up in every episode?
Why is it? But there had to be some other drugs on set, didn't there? I mean, there had to be somebody be like, no, I'm not touching that stuff. But do you have any, I don't know, crushed beetle powder? I don't know what it would do. I don't know what the kids do today.
Can you hear us, Mick?
I can hear you, but for some reason I can't get back in.
Oh, well, we can see you clear as a bell.
Yeah,
Oh,
we still
okay.
see you.
I guess I'm fine. I don't. Then
This
I
is-
don't know. I don't know what's happening. I can't see you guys, but
This is the time though where you can't see us, where we'll start throwing random gang signs.
is that?
Well, and hold on, and we've had you for over an hour. I didn't ask you how long you could go, so I do want to make sure that we get through all of our questions and anything
Okay.
you want to talk about. But now that you've kind of done this with them, are you saying you're not going to join this union? I just want to make sure.
Wow, I don't even
have a
know what.
conservative friend at work who just went off one day about unions for 25 minutes, and he was talking about his uncle and working for Ford. And I swear to God, as much you aren't quite as angry with it as because you just don't get angry, not that way that he does, but a lot of stuff was similar.
Well, let's put it this way. I'm at an age right now where I'm doing really good.
Yeah.
I don't have any problems. I mean, I bought my house. I bought my house. I've got Social Security and a little bit of a pension.
Uh-huh.
I'm not hurting, so I don't really give a fuck.
Right.
So I'm at a point in my life. I mean, maybe one of the main reasons that I never really kind of got with the union thing was because, I mean, I'm going to be realistic about it. I never worked on films that I always worked on horror films, and I got into the union maybe 7 times, but none of my contacts were ever in the union, right?
Yeah.
So the things that I would get offered on union film would be, like second banana drafting guy and stuff like that. And the thing is I kind of almost started my career as a production designer, so it isn't, it never really behooved me to get involved in the union. And I think that it gave me a view from the outside of looking at it going, there just seems to be a criminal element to all this. I don't know how any of this is legal.
Yeah, the corruption, absolutely. I completely understand. Well, now that Chad, by the way, I feel like you didn't get to ask, did you have anything else about the unions?
You mean? No,
Are you
I'm
with us,
good.
Chad?
I'm good. I'm here. I'm good.
Chad had a stroke about 25 minutes ago.
And nobody noticed.
But what I wanted to, because I mean, we've had you on here for an hour, and I completely forgot to ask when you had to get off, but I hadn't caught up with you in a while.
He's got off 5 times during this hour.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, I'm off now.
Well, what projects have you been working on, and what you got coming up?
Well, like I say, I worked on Pig Hill. I had a I got together with Roy Wagner, who I worked on Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and we've been following a group of kids in Virginia in several different school districts up and down the coast of Virginia that we've been teaching at-risk kids in Zoom meetings, and we spent most of June shooting the films that we had built with them.
Cool.
That was all in Virginia, and I got done with that last week, and I'm resting up, and in the middle of August I'm heading back to do the films that to do Solitude, which is the film that I'm shooting with Jeremy Brown. He and I did Vengeance together, and so we're doing this on a hyper low budget, and then towards the end of the year I got a couple other things that I can't remember, but this has been a very busy time for me.
Yeah.
Well, I want to circle back real quick because you mentioned earlier, and I chimed in with my coloring book I did. I still say, run with that; it'll be great. People love coloring.
I love that idea, by the way. I really do.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I can't draw, or I'd do it for you. You could just tell me what went wrong. I'd draw it up, and we'd sell it as a color. I still think you're going to get the Nightmare fans. You're going to get behind the scenes fans. And even if you just sold 10 copies, it would do your heart good. That being said, you mentioned that you did have, even though you said you weren't going to do another one, that you had thought of one. Are you ready to say what you're thinking about doing?
You mean in terms of a book?
Yeah.
I would like to do a different book about Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but it like I say, it's pretty hard to do without direct legal representation.
I understand that.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, but I would like to get together with somebody and just kind of like do a history of my life, because I've had a very interesting life.
That actually is a really good idea, and I think you should do that. You should get together with a biographer and actually sit down and go from A to Z.
Yeah, because I've looked at a lot of other people's resumes that are and I've kind of like sort of nailed some just interesting projects through my life. There's and what really brought this to mind was the passing of Jock Haitkin, who was a really good friend of mine, and I love Jock.
The DP of Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
The DP of Nightmare on Elm Street, and I did 5 films with him. But the thing is when I looked at his resume, I realized that the vast bulk of his resume, you wouldn't recognize anything in it. And I thought, wow, that's really strange, because I thought that everybody had all these oddly recognizable films that came sweeping back in the 2000s, right? But I'm one of the rare ones that does, and I go, wow, that's just so weird. I don't know why it worked that way.
I mean, but it's so exciting, and it's a whole. And I'm not saying this is your third act or fourth act or whatever, but it is fantastic to be able to meet all these new people and make all these new friends and have people automatically love you and just go into how much joy, just gush about how much joy you brought them.
I still find that is very strange. I was in Meadville, of all things. I was in Meadville, and
every time you say Meadville, I want to say Mudville, and
yes, and you know what?
Sorry, I am so sorry. I've tried.
Trust me when I say there's only about 10,000 people left in the world that would argue with you about it. So when I was in this hospital, and I was kind of the next town over. It's probably Meadville doesn't even really have much of a hospital. So I kind of had to go, I had to drive half an hour, and I'm in this hospital. I'm getting my foot checked on, and this nurse walks in and goes, and I thought that she was my nurse, and she goes, hi, hey, your name, you're Mick Strawn, right? And I said, yeah, that's my name. And I started to spell it for her. She goes, no, I know how it's spelled. She goes, I'm a huge horror fanatic. I was like, huh? And she goes, yeah, no, you have worked on so many different films that I really, really appreciate. And I just wanted to get a picture with you. And she got a picture with me and took off and went back around about her rounds. And I thought, wow, that's just strange. That it is a weird thing. I've spent most of my life, kind of fixing things in the background. And I'm one of those rare people that can do that and still has enough of a personality to get up and talk about it. And I really am very thankful for that. I'm thankful for the ability that I have to say, man, we had a great time, and I got to tell you what it was like.
You know what, Mick, and what another great thing about you is you actually remember some of it.
I do.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of people that are my age that don't remember a thing.
Well, we went to a convention recently that had some behind the scenes people talking about doing things, and I mean we attended a couple of them, and they were
attended as just guests. That was the first time that I had to pay admission and got pissed.
Yeah.
But it was you carry forth personality, and yeah. I'm not bad mouthing anyone.
No,
but it was a lot of this is how we did this, and you'll see here, and if you watch, you'll see this, and that's good. And it was fascinating, but at the same time, I was like, man, I just want you to all of a sudden crack a joke. Like
this is what I don't get is these are the best stories in the world.
Oh yeah.
These stories could be told in India and Sweden, and the thing is if you have just a modicum of like storytelling ability, you should be able to like go forever with these stories, right?
Yeah.
But the people that were involved in the real background, the people that were involved are the people that were involved. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. They weren't. We've said that on here 1,000 times. We love talking to people who are in production, and
I would rather do a blue collar movie podcast than anything.
Yeah, it's just because a lot of times actors and actresses are in trailers.
Well, but you also brought up a second ago that you made these friendships over the year, these connections with people that were DPs I was reading today because the producer, writer, etc., Manny Cotto passed away, and I guess Brian Helgeland was
Manny Cotto passed away.
He passed away yesterday. Passed away yesterday at 62.
Wow, you know that I worked with him on Warrior of Waverly Street.
No, honestly, it literally knocked me down when I found out, because he did the 4th season of Enterprise and turned it around before they canceled it. And I loved Manny Cotto. I loved reading about him, and I didn't know him and Brian Helgeland were close. But Brian Helgeland, I guess they came up together, and he said, and he posted this great photo of him and Manny Cotto. He said when action movies started to be how people made money and nobody wanted to see their little science fiction stories anymore, he said we said, well, what will sell? We need to get science fiction back in action films. And they pitched an idea called TikTok, and it was a guy that was going to explode as an action film. And he said they wrote the script on the phone with one another, and they bought clocks, cheap clocks, painted them red, and put like a lightning bolt across them. And that's what the photo is, them holding up these clocks. But they sent those out with the script, and they said they got $1 million for the script on that. They were brave enough to send clocks, and they said that was $1 million script. So that movie never got made, but we made $1 million off. And he was sharing that story, and he said, but I shared that story to say I wouldn't be who I am without. He said we met because we were in a writing, we were both represented by the same agent at one point. And they said, oh, you should meet. And he said, and it wasn't that our agent, it was that we actually started to get along, and I realized this guy's funny and I need a break from the chaos that's around me.
Yeah.
And and that's, your story made me think about that you surround yourself with people that connect you to things or lift you up. And I think that's one of the reasons your stories are so great, is because we can go, oh, well, that connects. It all connects.
I'll tell you a Manny Cotto story right now. We were,
oh yeah, we'd love to hear this.
we were working on, and I think it came out. Let's see. Well, let me look this up real quick. Warrior of Waverly Street came out as Star Kid. Warrior of Waverly Street, Star Kid came out as
that was the original name for Star Kid. Warrior of
Waverly Street came out as Star Kid. That was directed by
Manny Cotto.
Okay.
I didn't know he directed. I just always remember him from being the writer of Dr. Giggles. Sorry.
He also directed Dr. Giggles, Joe.
Oh, well, there you go.
So there was a point. We were having a lot of trouble with the ship itself, because the ship itself is actually a character in the film, and there was a point to where the ship is going to take off, and all the pedals. It was like a flower in the middle of a junkyard. That junkyard, I built that junkyard. I was brought in to build the junkyard that it landed in, because I specialized in junkyards.
By the way, that's a great phrase to have.
I can't imagine why, by the way.
That's just a great phrase to have. I specialize in junkyards.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do something for a living. So anyway, the thing is they couldn't get the arms to kind of go at the same time.
Yeah.
They were like, and I said, I get up there, and he comes to me and he goes, he says, I know that you can figure this out. And so between the two of us, what we figured, as opposed to them doing it mechanically, what we did is we filmed it slow. We filmed it fast. We sped the cameras up, and we just held all the pedals up, and we turned the cameras upside down, and we cut the string that was holding them all together, and it just dropped, right? But they dropped at the speed of gravity. So then we ran them all in reverse, and it all came up all at once, right?
Right.
And I gave him credit with being able to direct and think at the same time, which got a big laugh on set. And so at the end of the show, he gave me a painting. I don't think I have it anymore. I used to be in my office, but he gave me a painting that in the writing, in the painting, it had writing in it, but it says, "Thanks to Mick Strawn, best crew I ever had."
Mick,
because I also came back and was the one that did a lot of the electronics for the kid when he's inside of the face.
Oh, really?
So I wasn't actually on the film. I just kept showing up on the film all the time.
Oh, okay. Because
my sister was a production designer.
Yeah, CJ Strawn.
Right. But Mick Strawn just kept coming in. Whenever I wasn't doing something else in town, I would come in and fix this or fix that because an awful lot of it was kind of, and that was crossing union lines left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to get my daughters to watch Star Kid, because I'm like, this is right up your alley, girls. And I still haven't got them to sit down and watch it. Now I got extra reason to make them watch it.
There you go. Yeah. So
I never knew that was the title of that movie, though. The Warrior of Waverly Place.
Yeah, that was what I always knew it as was the, but I had heard in the long run, I had heard that it had been changed, and everybody else knows it as Star Kid.
All right.
Man.
Well,
I don't even know if I was ever credited on that film.
I didn't see your credit because I was looking for you. I did notice at the time, while you were talking, I was watching I was on IMDb looking at Star Kid, and the trailer was playing. I'm like, oh wait, it says CJ Strawn, not Mick.
Yeah, but trust me, between the director and my sister, they hardly ever let me go more than a couple of days without coming in.
Well, I know it's getting a little later, and but I just do what. This is going to be a weird question coming from me, but what's the most famous thing you've worked on that you never got credit for? that you can talk about.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna say, yeah,
know
there's a
you
lot
have
you
a
can't talk
lot.
Yeah,
about.
you know what? There's really a line there, and
Because there's so many NDAs, right?
yeah, I don't know where that line crosses. I mean, the line kind of crosses the line at about 2005 that I started working primarily for Disney and stuff. But I mean, I know that very few people ever know that I worked on Sid and Nancy. But
Well,
that's
you
kind
never
of
talked to us about
How
it.
have you never talked to us about doing Sid and Nancy?
I built the Chelsea Hotel.
What?
Really?
The entire interior of the Chelsea Hotel was a set that I built for.
Mick,
Why did you never mention this?
I don't know. I got a lot of things.
five and a half years, man.
I love the fact for Chad it's like a betrayal. He's like, how?
You know, I was the construction coordinator on it, and oh, you know, that's a whole story. That's a
You
whole.
built the fucking Chelsea.
But let's be brutally honest.
We
I
won't-
said his memory's pretty good. However, we were at a horror movie trivia contest. We picked him up. We went there. We got our asses kicked by a guy named Jake Gobold, who, by the way, deserved to kick our asses. And I just talked shit to him for 2 hours. And Mick and RA had the wrong damn year for Leatherface.
I am going to admit that I don't know dates. I mean, because
No, but it's funny that the star and the production designer are in the room and get their asses kicked by a bald
hey,
dude.
you know what? What's great though is if you averaged it out, it was right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I think I was 1 year over and he was 1 year under, right?
That's something like that. I wasn't for sure either. That's what's got so screwy.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god. Hey, the director of Sid and Nancy, what's his name?
Alex Cox.
Alex Cox.
Yeah, is he just as crazy as I think he is?
As crazy as a loon.
Good. In a good way.
But Gary Oldman, oh my God. Gary Oldman was one of those people who he was such not a method actor. You know, Hollywood at the time was all method actors.
Yeah.
And people would be walking around like behind the sets, you know, doing their lines and everything. And I remember that we did the French steps. Remember he was doing My Way.
Yeah,
He sang My Way, and he was coming down that set of steps that was supposed to be a French variety show.
Right. Yeah.
And he was completely blasted, right? And I had seen the actual pictures of the show, right? I'd actually seen the video of the show. There's a video of the show that he was emulating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is he's doing the playback, and I kind of come in from the side because I was trying to get around to one of the other bars, and I'm just standing there and I'm just watching him at the top of the steps, and he's just this great, just looks like he's just completely up on smack and completely drunk, and go, I did my way. And he gets to the bottom of the steps, and then cut. So what do you guys think of that? You know, and I swear, it gave everybody that was standing there watching him, it gave them whiplash. I mean, it kind of made you go, what the fuck? How can he do that?
Oh my God.
Well, that's a good story because it sounds like he's just not a method asshole.
Yeah, no, he could turn it on and turn it off, and he knew exactly where he was going, and he was nice. He was incredibly polite, really sweet, and you know, I mean, an awful lot of Americans, if they had to play that role with method being so strong at the time, you know, they would have had to have, you know, been an asshole and shit themselves.
I bet you $10 Daniel Day-Lewis is an insufferable dickhead.
Exactly. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, we have kept you on for an hour and a half.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bore anybody for that.
You did not bore us. It was amazing. This is what happens when we go out and have dinner, and this is the reason why I'm kind of sad I'm more than kind of sad that you're not coming to Scarefest because that means I won't see you.
Yeah, because I was looking forward to actually trying to come to that trivia this year because I couldn't make it last year.
Yeah.
Well, guys, if I can make it down that way, if I'm back in town, but I get a feeling I won't be. So
I understand. Well, thank you so much.
hey,
You are welcome anytime.
And when
and I
your
love
movie's
you.
done,
I love you guys. I still have to say that I don't know why. I mean, this has still got to be one of my favorite podcasts.
Oh,
I don't
I mean,
know.
not to be on, not to be on because you guys are insufferable. But I mean, when I'm going down the road all the time, I'm listening to this all the time unless you have guests on, which means that I won't be able to listen to this.
What, have you ever listened? Have you ever listened to any of your episodes?
No, God no.
Oh, well, you should.
Why would I do that?
I don't know. I don't
think
listen to us either. But
I'd say, yeah, no. Well, and my entire thing though is that I can't listen to myself.
I can't. I don't like the sound of my own voice.
mm-mm.
You know,
I don't like the sound of your voice either, but I really don't like mine.
we all agree that nobody likes the sound of Mick's voice.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. There's another idea, Mick. You could do an audio coloring book and just narrate it. In this part, you would be coloring a car wreck.
Yes.
I think I've had enough. I'll see you guys.
See
I love
ya.
you guys.
Stop recording.
Oh, you too, man.
Love
Bye,
you.
man.
Bye.
See you guys.
Ah.